Happy Halloween, all. In this edition of My Media Helpers Entertainment Online, we'll take a peek at some free and scary films that are streaming through the frightening bandwidth near you. Each day this week, I will jump on a different streaming service and give you my 5 best picks as to what picks to check out this 2021 Halloween season. There are so many movies on these streaming services, it's hard to determine what's worth watching. I want to recommend some of my personal favorites. The films I present to you aren't necessarily award-winnings by any stretch of the imagination. These are solid films, and they're certainly worth a watch during the witching season. You'll see on a lot of these streaming platforms that they're providing the same movie. For instance, Tubi and Pluto TV are streaming Species, which is a film I already covered in the Tubi video. I won't cover the same movie twice, so check out the other videos to see what I recommend. This go around, we'll focus on Pluto TV and their free service of movies. I'm going to concentrate solely on their free on-demand content, and there is plenty to choose from. Unlike IMDb TV, where it was hard for me to recommend films to you, I was a limited supply there. This was even harder. There are lots here that I haven't seen or I didn't care for, so I'm certainly not going to recommend something just because. I'll shoot you 4 definites this time out, and then 1 so-so. Right off the bat, there's the movie Bats. There have been dozens upon dozens of movies that revolve around some kind of creature or creatures that attack a small town. Off the top of my head, I can think of Tremors, Gremlins, Arachnophobia, Piranha, and so on and so forth, and blah, blah, blah. In this case, it just happens to be bats. The film stars Lou Diamond Phillips, Dinah Meyer, Bob Gunton, and Leon, whoever Leon is. It was the first film released by Destination Films. A hostile swarm of genetically mutated bats terrorizes a local Texas town, and it is up to zoologist Sheila Casper, who teams up with town sheriff Emmett Kimsey, to exterminate the creatures before they take more lives. The film grossed $10 million against a $5 million budget. Box office reception, nor the critics were very kind to this film. You tell me differently, but I don't believe it to be a terrible film. It's just like a lot of these types of films are. I use the word probably way too much, but it just fits to say this film is campy, and it's campy fun. I like it. I think you'll enjoy it for the Halloween season. Give it a try. Batters up. Invasion of the Body Snatchers. This is just plain classic goodness, so fit for this time of year. Invasion of the Body Snatchers is a 1978 American science fiction horror film directed by Phil Kaufman and starring Donald Sutherland, Brooke Adams, Veronica Cartwright, Jeff Goldblum, and Leonard Nimoy. Released on December 22nd of 1978, it is a remake of the 1956 film of the same name, which is based on the 1955 novel The Body Snatchers by Jack Finney. The plot involves a San Francisco health inspector and his colleagues who, over the course of a few days, discover that humans are being replaced by alien duplicates. Each is a perfect copy of the person replaced, but devoid of human emotion. Released in the United States over the Christmas weekend of 1978, Invasion of the Body Snatchers grossed nearly $25 million at the American box office. Can you imagine eating your Christmas feast with all the trimmings and then deciding to go out and see this movie? Nothing screams holiday cheer more than an alien invasion. Invasion of the Body Snatchers initially received varied reviews from critics, though its critical reception has significantly improved in subsequent years, receiving a 92% on Rotten Tomatoes and also being hailed as one of the greatest remakes ever, as well as one of the best science fiction horror films of all time. Gals and guys, this is a pretty creepy movie. It's very cool. It holds up the test of time, without a doubt. Check this out your Halloween season. It's an awesome classic. The Monster Squad. This movie has big old nards. The Monster Squad is a 1987 American comedy horror film directed by Fred Decker and written by Decker and Shane Black, who met his classmates at the UCLA. It was released by TriStar Pictures on August 14th of 1987. The film features a variety of Universal monsters, led by Count Dracula. The Monster Squad is a club of preteens who idolize classic monster movies and their non-human stars. Club leader Sean Crenshaw, whose young sister Phoebe desperately wants to join the club, is given the diary of legendary monster hunter Dr. Abraham Van Helsing. But his excitement abates when he finds it is written in German. Sean and the rest of the Monster Squad, his best friend and second in command, Patrick Rhodes, clumsy overweight Horace, tough older kid Rudy, and little Eugene go to visit an elderly man known as the Scary German Guy, actually a kind gentleman and a former concentration camp prisoner, to translate the diary. The diary describes in great detail an amulet that is composed of concentrated good. One day out of every century, as the forces of good and evil reach a balance, the otherwise indestructible amulet becomes vulnerable to destruction, with the next day of balance happening with a few days. At the stroke of midnight, the kids realize they must gain possession of the amulet and use it with an incantation from Van Helsing's diary to open a wormhole in the universe and cast the monsters into limbo. As shown in the film's prelude, Van Helsing has unsuccessfully attempted this 100 years ago in order to defeat his old adversary Count Dracula. His apprentices then emigrated to the United States to hide the amulet, where it was out of Dracula's immediate reach. While not being a major success during its theatrical run and receiving mixed reviews from critics, the film has gained positive reception from audiences and has become, gals and guys, a cult classic like many of these in the years since its release. Yes, another cult classic. I seem to be saying that a lot. The film is very much in the tone of Goonies, where a group of kids face the fantastical. Of course, in Goonies, there was Chunk, and in this film, there is Horace. You always need an overweight kid in the 80s, I guess. The Monster Squad, people, it's fun, it's good. Watch it this Halloween season. The Crow. Yes, Die Hard is a Christmas movie. It takes place during Christmas time at a Christmas party. Just because it's an action movie doesn't disqualify it from being a Christmas movie. And I mention this because, yes, The Crow is a Halloween movie for this very same reason. On October 30th, Devil's Night in Detroit, Sergeant Elbrecht is at the scene of a crime where Shelley Webster has been beaten and raped. Her fiancé, musician Eric Draven, lies dead on the street after being stabbed, shot, and thrown out the window. The couple had planned on getting married the following day, Halloween. As he leaves for the hospital with Shelley, Elbrecht meets a young girl, Sarah, who says that she is their friend and that they can take care of her. Elbrecht reluctantly tells her that Shelley is dying. 1 year later, a crow taps on Eric's gravestone. Eric awakens and climbs out of his grave. Meanwhile, the street gang who perpetrated the deaths of Eric and Shelley, headed by T-Bird, is setting fires in the city. Upon returning to his old, now derelict apartment, Eric experiences flashbacks of T-Bird and his gang, Tintin, Funboy, and Skank, committing the murder. Eric soon discovers that any wounds he receives heals immediately, guided by the Crow. He sets out to avenge his and Shelley's murders by killing the perpetrators. The Crow is a 1994 American Gothic superhero film directed by Alex Proyas, I believe it's pronounced. It stars Brandon Lee in his final film appearance as Eric Draven, a murdered musician who is resurrected to avenge the deaths of himself and his fiancée. The film is based on James O'Barr's comic of the same name. Production on The Crow was struck by tragedy when Lee was fatally wounded during filming. As Lee had finished most of his scenes before his death, the film was completed through script rewrites, a stunt double, and digital effects. The Crow is dedicated to Lee and his fiancée, Eliza Hutton. If you haven't heard the story, and it's pretty well known, Lee was filming a scene where his character Eric is shot after witnessing the beating and rape of his fiancée. Actor Michael Massey's character Funboy fires a .44 Magnum Smith and Wesson Model 629 revolver at Lee as he walks into the room. A previous scene using the same gun and called for an inert dummy cartridge filled with bullets, but no powder or primer to be loaded in the revolver. For close-up scenes that use a revolver where the bullets are clearly visible from the front and do not require the gun to actually be fired, dummy cartridges provide a more realistic appearance than blank rounds, which have no bullet. Instead of purchasing commercial dummy cartridges, the film's prop crew, hampered by time constraints, created their own by pulling the bullets from live rounds, dumping the powder charge, then reinserting the bullets. However, they unknowingly left the live primer in place at the rear of the cartridge. At some point during filming, the revolver was apparently discharged with one of these improperly deactivated cartridges in the chamber, setting off the primer with enough force to drive the bullet partway into the barrel, where it became stuck, a condition known as squab load. The prop crew either failed to notice or failed to recognize the significance of this issue. In the fatal scene, which called for the revolver to be actually fired at Lee from a distance of 12 to 15 feet, the dummy cartridges were exchanged for blank rounds, which feature a live powder charge and primer, but no bullet, thus allowing the gun to be fired without the risk of an actual projectile. As the production company had sent the firearms specialist home early, responsibility for the guns was given to a prop assistant who was not aware of the rule of checking all firearms before and after handling. Therefore, the barrel was not checked for obstructions when it came time to load it with the blank rounds. Since the bullet from the dummy round was already trapped in the barrel, this caused the .44 Magnum bullet to be fired out of the barrel with virtually the same force if the gun had been loaded with a live round, and it struck Lee in the abdomen, mortally wounding him. He was rushed to the new Hanover Regional Medical Center in Wilmington, where he underwent 6 hours of surgery. However, attempts to save him were unsuccessful, and Lee was pronounced dead at 1:03 p.m. Eastern on March 31st of 1993 at the age of 28, and the shooting was ruled an accident. And coincidentally, another accidental shooting has just happened recently with Alec Baldwin. I'm not certain the details beyond that, but it did take a young woman's life. That's just kind of a side note. After Lee's death and most of his scenes filmed, it was decided to complete the production in his honor, and we're all glad they did, as it's a beautiful send-off to this young actor's career. It's a great movie, good action movie. Brandon Lee does awesome in it. Great Halloween movie. Check it out if you're looking for something to watch. All right, the next three are not recommendations. I was just trying to find a fifth film to put on this video. I watched VHS. I watched The Grudge from 2004. I watched The Day of the Dead from 1985. I wanted to watch a film I've never seen before, and I originally chose VHS. I'm not sure why. The whole found footage trend was a string of crappy movies. I just thought it would be interesting. I made it through about 7 minutes of that movie, and that solidifies why I watch a movie I've already seen 9 out of 10 times, because there are only so many needles in a haystack of mediocrity. But these are supposed to be all positive reviews, so I apologize, but VHS is a big pile of shit. I don't know if it gets better further into the film, and I guess I really don't care. Maybe you have a stronger constitution than I have and can trudge through it. Now, with that said, I put in The Grudge. I like Sarah Michelle Gellar. Watching for 90 minutes wouldn't be terrible. How bad could it be after digesting and throwing up VHS? On a positive note, I made it through the entire movie, only staring at the wall 3 times out of boredom, I think. I can't recommend it. I know it did great at the box office and spawned a few sequels, but I don't get the attraction. It was boring to me. But positivity, damn it. I'm going to make it through this video with 5 recommended videos if it takes me all night. So back to the Halloween list. I go spouting eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Okay, I remember watching Dawn of the Dead, the second film in the Night of the Living Dead series, and digging it. I watched The Walking Dead for the first 4 seasons. Let's give it a go, shall we? End this evening on a scary with some scary. The movie was watchable with some nice practical zombie carnage. It played like a TV movie if a TV movie was rated R. The writing wasn't good. The characters are two-dimensional. The plot was stupid. But these films did carve the way for future greatness, like The Walking Dead, Zombieland, Resident Evil, 28 Days Later, and so on and so forth, and yada yada. If you have some time in your hands, check it out. If you haven't seen the others I've mentioned, the other 4 that I recommend, I should say that I've mentioned, but I don't recommend these movies. I just watched them to get a 5th one, and I did find a 5th one, so let's get to that one. 10, Cloverfield Lane. For anyone who doesn't think I put a lot of time into these videos, I spent the betterment of the day trying to find the 5th and final film for this video, and finally, something extremely watchable. I wasn't a giant fan of the original Cloverfield, so I shied away from this film for a long time, but my determination and perseverance in finding something to recommend drove me into its arms, and we are now good friends. 10, Cloverfield Lane is a 2016 American science fiction psychological thriller film directed by Dan Trachtenberg in his directorial debut. Produced by J.J. Abrams and Lindsay Weber, the film stars Mary Elizabeth Winstead, John Goodman, and John Gallagher Jr. It is the 2nd installment in the Cloverfield franchise, and the story follows a young woman who, after a car crash, wakes up in an underground bunker with 2 men who insist that an event has left the surface of the Earth uninhabitable. The film was developed from a script titled The Cellar, but under production by Bad Robot, it turned into a spiritual successor to the 2008 film Cloverfield. It is presented in a third-person narrative, in contrast to its predecessor, found footage style. Principal photography took place under the title Valencia in New Orleans, Louisiana from October 20th to December 15th of 2014. And 10, Cloverfield Lane premiered in New York City on March 8th of 2016 and was released in select countries on March 10th. It was released in the United States on March 11th, 2016 in both conventional and IMAX formats. The film grossed over $110 million worldwide and was praised for its performances, screenplay, and atmosphere. A successor, The Cloverfield Paradox, which I did happen to see on Netflix, was released on February 4th of 2018, and that was terrible. So let's not talk about that one. It was a bad movie. This is a cool film. Let's get back to this one. This is a cool film to add to your Halloween and creative features, or creature features, not creative. Jesus, I can't read. And the ending satisfies most satisfactory. That's it for this week, gals and guys. Check out My Media Helper every Sunday to get my brief reviews on what to watch. Okay, they might not be exactly every Sunday based on time, but they're certainly being edited and written when I do have time. If you could start liking, subscribing, and sharing, and if it pays my rent, I can go ahead and spend more time on the channel. And until then, I'll need to get to work. So until next time, gals and guys, I appreciate you as always, lovers. Happy Halloween, and bye-bye.